In the heart of a bustling amusement park, a summer day meant for joy and laughter spirals into a nightmare for Layla Harris, a pregnant mother confined to a wheelchair by medical complications. When a brash and prejudiced officer challenges her need for accessibility, the confrontation turns into a public spectacle that leaves Layla humiliated, her young daughter terrified, and her family thrust into the national spotlight. Her husband, Noah Harris, a federal prosecutor known for his calm demeanor, arrives in time to witness the abuse and refuses to stand idly by. But as the couple pushes for justice, they uncover a tangled web of corruption within the police force, a covert network determined to silence dissenters and maintain unchecked authority. Their fight for dignity becomes a battle against a system steeped in prejudice and abuse. Threatened and betrayed from unexpected corners, the Harris family must confront impossible choices. Will their pursuit of justice destroy the life they've built, or can they expose the shadows lurking in authority and emerge stronger together? With stakes higher than they ever imagined, Shadows of Authority is a gripping tale of resilience, love, and the lengths one family will go to protect their truth. Layla Harris wheeled herself through the cobblestone paths of Seaside Amusement Park, the late afternoon sun casting a golden glow over the vibrant scene. Sierra skipped ahead, her braided hair bouncing with every step. "Mommy, can we go to the Ferris wheel first?" Sierra asked, stopping abruptly to wait for her mother to catch up. She clutched her stuffed bunny, Boo, tightly. "Of course, sweetheart," Layla replied, her smile bright despite the fatigue that tugged at her. The summer heat was relentless, and being 7 months pregnant added an extra layer of discomfort. "But first, we need to get the accessibility pass," and Layla chuckled softly, appreciating Sierra's boundless energy. She glanced at her phone, noting that Noah had sent a text, "Wrapping up soon. Meet you at the Ferris wheel." Knowing her husband would join them soon brought her comfort. For now, it was just her and Sierra against the world. As they approached the accessibility gate, the shaded path provided a brief respite from the sun. Layla adjusted her position in the wheelchair, steeling herself to make the day as smooth as possible. At the gate stood a security guard, his arms crossed over his chest. His eyes narrowed as Layla rolled up to him, Sierra trailing close behind. "Hello," Layla began, her voice polite. "We're here to get the pass for the accessibility rides." The guard gave her a once-over, his expression skeptical. "You sure you need it?" His tone carried an edge that made Layla pause. She blinked, momentarily thrown. "Yes, I'm in a wheelchair due to pregnancy complications." She held up a folder. "I have my medical documents if you need to see them." The guard scoffed and motioned dismissively. "We've had people try to game the system before. You don't look like you need it that bad." Sierra frowned, stepping closer to Layla. "Mommy, what does he mean?" Layla placed a calming hand on her daughter's arm, though her heart pounded. "It's okay, baby. Let me handle this." She turned back to the guard, her voice firm. "I'm not here to game any system. I'm just trying to give my daughter a nice day at the park." The guard ignored her, picking up his radio. "I'm going to need some backup at Gate C, potential misuse of accessibility privileges." The words sent a cold shiver down Layla's spine. "Backup?" she asked, her voice faltering. "That's not necessary. I have everything you need right here." But the guard didn't even glance at her folder. Sierra's grip on Boo tightened as she whispered, "Mommy, is everything okay?" "Yes, sweetie," Layla replied, though her stomach twisted in dread. "Everything's fine." A few moments later, Officer Brent Caldwell strode toward them, his stocky frame exuding authority. His gaze swept over Layla before settling on the security guard. "What's the issue?" he asked, his voice curt. The guard gestured toward Layla. "She claims she needs an accessibility pass, but I'm not convinced. Could be another scam." Layla's jaw tightened. "Excuse me, I'm not another scam. I have medical documentation right here." Caldwell smirked, his pale blue eyes cold. "Anyone can print off some papers and call them medical documents." Layla's hands gripped the wheels of her chair. "Are you seriously accusing me of lying?" "Not accusing, just verifying," Caldwell replied, taking a step closer. His presence loomed over her, oppressive and unyielding. "Stand up and show me you can't walk if you really need that chair." Layla felt the blood drain from her face. "I can't," she said through gritted teeth. "I told you. My pregnancy makes it dangerous to walk." Caldwell leaned in slightly, his sneer unmistakable. "Convenient." Sierra's small voice broke the tension. "Why is he being mean, Mommy?" Layla glanced at her daughter, her heart breaking. "It's okay, baby," she said softly, though her own voice trembled. "We'll figure this out." The crowd around them grew larger, murmurs spreading. Some passersby pulled out their phones, recording the scene. Layla could feel the heat of their stares and the humiliation rising in her chest. "Officer, I'm not trying to cause trouble," she said, struggling to keep her composure. "I'm just here with my daughter to enjoy the park." Caldwell ignored her and spoke into his radio. "Need additional support at Gate C. Situation escalating." Layla's pulse quickened. "Escalating? What are you talking about? I haven't done anything wrong." The murmur of the crowd grew louder as a tall man in a crisp shirt and tie pushed through the throng. Noah Harris's sharp features softened as he spotted Layla, though his eyes darkened when he saw her distress. "What's going on here?" Noah demanded, his tone controlled but firm. Caldwell turned to face him, sizing him up. "And you are?" "Her husband," Noah replied, stepping closer to Layla's wheelchair. He rested a protective hand on her shoulder. "Is there a problem?" "This woman is trying to use the accessibility entrance without proper proof," Caldwell said flatly. "She's in a wheelchair." "For God's sake," Noah snapped. "What more proof do you need?" "Medical documentation isn't enough," Caldwell replied, his tone smug. "We've had too many people abusing the system." Noah's jaw clenched as he pulled out his phone. "Then I suggest you call your supervisor, because this ends now." Layla reached for Noah's arm, her voice shaky. "Noah, please. I don't want Sierra to see this." He glanced down at her, his expression softening. "I know, but this isn't right." Caldwell took a step closer, his posture threatening. "Sir, if you don't back off, I'll have to consider this interference." Noah's eyes narrowed. "Interference? I'm protecting my wife and daughter." Sierra clung to her father's leg, her wide eyes filled with tears. "Daddy, is Mommy in trouble?" "No, sweetheart," Noah said, crouching to her level. "Mommy's done nothing wrong." As he straightened, his calm demeanor cracked. "Now call your supervisor, or I'll call mine," Noah said, pulling his federal prosecutor badge from his pocket. "I'm sure we'd both prefer to handle this quietly." The crowd erupted in whispers and gasps, their phones capturing every moment. Caldwell's expression flickered with uncertainty, but his grip on authority didn't falter. "Fine," he said, his voice tight. "But this isn't over." Layla exhaled shakily as Noah squeezed her shoulder. For now, the storm had paused, but the clouds overhead promised it was far from finished. Noah's calm voice, steady despite the storm of emotions beneath, echoed in the tense silence. "Layla hasn't broken a single law. What exactly are you arresting me for, Officer Caldwell?" The officer's fingers twitched near his cuffs, his smirk growing. "Interfering with police duties and obstructing an investigation." "Investigation?" Noah repeated, incredulous. "You mean humiliating a pregnant woman in a wheelchair in front of her child?" Caldwell's smirk faltered, replaced by a glare. The murmuring crowd shifted closer, their phones capturing every detail. "Sir, I suggest you step back," Caldwell barked, "or I'll have no choice but to cuff you." Layla reached out from her wheelchair, gripping Noah's hand. "Noah, please," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Don't do this." "Not here." Noah's eyes softened as he looked at her, but his resolve didn't waver. "This isn't right, Layla. I can't let it go." "Daddy," Sierra whimpered, tugging at his leg, her eyes wide with fear. "Don't let them take you." Noah crouched to Sierra's level, cupping her tear-streaked face. "No one's taking anyone, sweetheart. I promise." But as he stood again, Caldwell took a step forward, raising his voice. "Final warning, Harris. Turn around and place your hands behind your back." The crowd gasped, and Layla's breath caught. She squeezed the armrests of her wheelchair, so tightly her knuckles turned white. The weight of the moment pressed down on all of them. Just as Caldwell reached for his cuffs, a sharp cry broke through the tension. Layla doubled over in her wheelchair, clutching her stomach. "No!" she gasped, her breath ragged. "Stop this! You're hurting my family!" Sierra screamed, running to her mother's side. "Mommy, are you okay?" The crowd surged forward, shouts of outrage mingling with concern. "She's in pain," someone yelled. "This is too much." Noah was by Layla's side in an instant, his hand on her back. "Layla, breathe. What's wrong?" "I can't," Layla gasped, her free hand gripping Noah's arm. "I can't do this." Caldwell hesitated, his hand frozen mid-reach. His younger partner stepped closer, his face pale. "Maybe we should call an ambulance," the younger officer suggested, his voice uncertain. "Back off," Caldwell snapped, but his tone wavered. Noah's head snapped up, his eyes blazing. "Enough," he roared. "Can't you see she's in pain? You're not just out of line. You're dangerous." Caldwell glared, but the weight of the crowd's outrage and Layla's visible distress seemed to press down on him. His posture shifted, less sure, less threatening. Noah straightened, his hand slipping into his pocket. "You want authority?" he said, his voice cold and commanding. "Here's authority." The gleam of his federal prosecutor badge in the sunlight caused a ripple through the crowd. Phones raised higher, capturing the moment. "I'm Noah Harris," he announced, his voice carrying over the murmurs. "Federal prosecutor. And what you're doing here is not just wrong. It's criminal." Caldwell's eyes narrowed, but his confidence faltered. "That badge doesn't give you the right to interfere with." "What it gives me," Noah interrupted, his voice sharp, "is the knowledge that you're violating my wife's rights. She's shown you documentation. She's in a wheelchair. She's 7 months pregnant. And yet, you've done nothing but harass and humiliate her." The younger officer stepped back, his expression shifting to one of unease. "Caldwell," he started, but the older officer shot him a look that silenced him. The crowd's murmurs grew louder, their anger now directed fully at Caldwell. "This is discrimination," someone shouted. "Shame on you," yelled another. The piercing sound of sirens cut through the chaos. A police cruiser pulled up, and a tall sergeant stepped out, his sharp gaze surveying the scene. The crowd parted slightly, allowing him through. "Caldwell," the sergeant barked. "What's going on here?" Caldwell straightened, his face flushed. "This man," he gestured at Noah, "is interfering, and his wife refused to comply with verification procedures." The sergeant's gaze flicked to Noah, then to Layla, who still clutched her stomach, her breathing shallow. His frown deepened. "She's pregnant," he said, his voice tinged with disbelief. "And in a wheelchair." "She presented documents," Caldwell replied, his tone defensive. "But, did you verify them?" The sergeant interrupted, his voice cold. Caldwell hesitated. The sergeant didn't wait for an answer. He turned to Layla, his expression softening. "Ma'am, are you okay?" Layla took a shaky breath, her voice steady despite her obvious exhaustion. "No, I'm not. I just wanted to take my daughter on a ride. Instead, I've been treated like a criminal." The sergeant's jaw tightened as he turned back to Caldwell. "Stand down," he ordered, his tone leaving no room for argument. "Now." Caldwell opened his mouth to protest, but the sergeant's glare silenced him. "Return to the cruiser," the sergeant said sharply. "We'll discuss this later." As Caldwell stalked off, the sergeant turned back to Noah. "I apologize for the treatment your family received. This should never have happened." Noah's shoulders relaxed slightly, though his expression remained firm. "Thank you. But this isn't the end of it." The sergeant nodded. "Understood. Please file a formal complaint, and it will be handled." Noah bent down to Layla, his hand resting gently on her shoulder. "Let's get you home." The family left the park under the watchful eyes of the crowd, their dignity bruised but their determination intact. Behind them, the murmurs and flashing cameras faded, but the fight for justice had only just begun. The Harris family returned home, the weight of the day's events hanging over them like a storm cloud. Sierra, usually bubbly and full of questions, sat silently on the couch, clutching her stuffed bunny, Boo. Layla eased herself into a chair, her body tense with exhaustion, while Noah paced the room. "We can't let this go," Noah said, his voice sharp with controlled anger. "What Caldwell did was illegal, and the way he humiliated you." He stopped mid-sentence, shaking his head. Layla rubbed her temples. "I know, Noah, but do you realize what happens if we fight this? The scrutiny, the backlash. Sierra doesn't deserve to be in the middle of this." Sierra looked up, her voice soft. "Mommy, is that man going to hurt us again?" Layla's heart broke at the fear in her daughter's eyes. She reached out, pulling Sierra close. "No, baby. Mommy and Daddy won't let that happen." Noah knelt beside them, placing a hand on Layla's knee. "She's right, Layla. We have to do this, not just for us but for Sierra. For anyone else who's faced this kind of treatment." After a long pause, Layla nodded. "Then let's fight." The next morning, Noah sat across from a civil rights lawyer, Paula Simmons, in her bustling downtown office. Stacks of case files lined her desk, but her sharp eyes focused entirely on Noah and Layla. "This is a strong case," Paula said, tapping her pen against a notepad. "The video footage from bystanders is clear. Officer Caldwell violated your rights, and the park security guard contributed to the discrimination." Layla shifted in her chair. "But what about the backlash? What if they twist this into something it's not?" Paula's gaze softened. "Layla, cases like this can be tough, but they're important. The system doesn't change unless people like you stand up and say, 'Enough. We'll protect you as much as possible, but going public is a risk you'll need to prepare for.'" Noah leaned forward. "We're ready, whatever it takes." Paula nodded, a faint smile crossing her face. "Good. First, we'll file a formal complaint with the department. Then, we'll gather more evidence. The videos are great, but I'll need personal testimonies too. Are you up for that?" Layla took a deep breath. "Yes, I'll do it." As the story hit the news, the Harris family found themselves at the center of a media storm. Headlines read, "Pregnant woman harassed at amusement park and federal prosecutor challenges police misconduct." News vans parked outside their home, reporters eager for a statement. Inside, Layla sat at the kitchen table, her hands wrapped around a mug of tea. Her phone buzzed constantly, messages of support mixed with hateful comments. Noah sorted through legal documents nearby, his focus unshaken. "I didn't think it would blow up like this," Layla murmured. "It's the world we live in," Noah replied, not looking up. "People are finally paying attention." Sierra peeked into the room, holding Boo. "Mommy, why are there so many cameras outside?" Layla forced a smile. "Because Mommy and Daddy are telling a really important story, sweetie." Later that evening, as they prepared for bed, Noah noticed Layla staring out the window, her expression distant. "What's wrong?" he asked gently. She sighed. I didn't think fighting for justice would feel so heavy." Noah wrapped his arms around her. "We'll carry it together. You're not alone." The tension of the past week gave way to determination as the Harris family arrived at a public rally organized by a local civil rights group. Hundreds of people filled the steps of City Hall, holding signs that read "Justice for Layla" and "End Police Misconduct." The energy was palpable. Layla stood beside Noah, her nerves threatening to overwhelm her as she stepped up to the microphone. But when she saw Sierra's encouraging smile, she straightened her back. "My name is Layla Harris," she began, her voice steady despite her trembling hands. "Last week, my family and I went to an amusement park hoping for a day of joy. Instead, we were met with suspicion, humiliation, and abuse of power." The crowd murmured in agreement. "I'm here today because this isn't just about me. It's about every person who has been judged, mistreated, or silenced because of who they are. This has to stop." As the crowd erupted into applause, Noah took the mic, his tone calm but forceful. "This fight isn't just about justice for my wife. It's about accountability and change. We won't stop until that happens." The rally ended with cheers and chants of support, but as the family left, a shadow of uncertainty lingered. The battle had just begun, and the path ahead would test their strength, unity, and resolve. Layla stood at the window, gazing into the quiet street outside their home. The evening sky was painted with streaks of orange and pink, but the beauty did little to calm her restless mind. When the doorbell rang, she jumped slightly. "Noah," she called. "Can you get that?" Noah appeared from the kitchen, wiping his hands. He opened the door to reveal Marcus, Layla's younger brother. His expression was a mixture of anxiety and guilt. "Marcus," Noah said cautiously, "what brings you here?" "I need to talk to you both," Marcus replied, his voice low. "It's important." Layla joined them, her surprise evident. "Marcus? It's been months. What's going on?" Inside, Marcus paced the living room, avoiding their eyes. Finally, he stopped, taking a deep breath. "I've done something I regret, and it's connected to what you're going through." "What do you mean?" Noah asked, his voice firm. Marcus hesitated before meeting Layla's gaze. "I work in the same precinct as Caldwell. He's not acting alone. There's a group, officers covering for each other, manipulating reports, intimidating people. I didn't want to get involved, but you did," Layla said, her tone sharp. Marcus nodded, his voice cracking. "I thought I didn't have a choice. They threatened me, my job, my safety, but I can't live with it anymore. I need to make it right." Layla crossed her arms, her expression unreadable. "You knew what he was doing and stayed quiet?" "I'm sorry," Marcus said, his eyes pleading. "I didn't know it would lead to this." Noah leaned forward. "Will you testify? Help us expose them?" Marcus hesitated, then nodded. "If it'll help, I'll tell you everything I know." Layla's voice was icy. "It's the least you can do." In Paula Simmons's office the next day, Marcus recounted everything he knew. Paula listened intently, occasionally jotting notes on a legal pad. "This is big," she said when Marcus finished. "If we can corroborate your testimony, it could blow the case wide open." Marcus shifted uncomfortably. "But it's dangerous. These guys don't play fair." Paula looked at Noah and Layla. "We'll need to be careful. If this goes public before we're ready, they'll try to discredit you." And Marcus, Layla's expression softened slightly as she glanced at her brother. "Are you sure about this, Marcus? Once you step forward, there's no going back." Marcus met her eyes. "I'm sure. It's the only way to make things right." Over the next few days, Paula worked tirelessly with Noah to build their case. Layla, meanwhile, juggled her role as a mother with the emotional toll of preparing to testify. Sierra sensed the tension, her usual cheerfulness dampened. "Mommy, why are you so sad?" she asked one evening. Layla knelt down, brushing a curl from Sierra's face. "I'm not sad, baby, just tired. But don't worry, Daddy and I are taking care of it." Sierra hugged her tightly. "I'll take care of you too." The courtroom was packed, tension palpable as Layla took the stand. She clasped her hands tightly, her voice steady but laced with emotion as she recounted the events at the amusement park. "I felt humiliated," she said, her voice breaking slightly. "Not just for me, but for my daughter. She had to see her mother treated like she didn't matter." The prosecutor nodded. "And did you provide the officer with medical documentation?" "Yes," Layla replied. But he dismissed it without even looking properly. As she stepped down, Noah gave her a reassuring smile. "You were perfect," he whispered. Next, Marcus took the stand. His testimony sent ripples through the courtroom as he described the covert network within the precinct. "They cover for each other," Marcus said, his voice steady. "Reports disappear. Evidence gets lost. It's all about protecting their own." The defense attorney attempted to discredit him, pointing out his involvement. But Marcus didn't falter. "I'm not proud of what I did," he admitted. "But I'm here now to tell the truth." 3 days after Marcus's testimony, Noah answered a late-night call. The color drained from his face as he listened. "No," he whispered. "That's not possible." Layla appeared in the doorway, alarmed. "What is it?" Noah hung up, his voice trembling. "It's Marcus. He's gone." Layla froze. "What do you mean, gone?" "They found him in his car. It looks like an accident, but," Noah hesitated, "it doesn't feel right." Tears streamed down Layla's face as she sank into a chair. "He was trying to fix it," she whispered. "He was trying to do the right thing." The news hit Sierra hard, too. "Why did Uncle Marcus have to go?" she asked tearfully. Noah hugged her tightly. Sometimes bad things happen to good people, sweetie, but we're going to keep fighting for him. As the family grieved, their resolve only deepened. They knew the fight was far from over, and Marcus's sacrifice added a new weight to their mission. They would see it through to the end, no matter the cost. The courtroom was silent except for the faint shuffle of papers and the occasional cough. Layla sat between Noah and Paula, her hands trembling as she clutched a tissue. Across the room, Brent Caldwell sat stiffly, his jaw set in defiance. "All rise," the bailiff called. As the jury filed in, Layla's heart pounded. She glanced at Noah, who gave her a reassuring nod. Sierra, too young to attend, was at home with a trusted neighbor. Layla couldn't shake the thought of how much was riding on this moment, for her family, for Marcus's memory, and for everyone who had been silenced by corruption. The foreman cleared his throat, his voice steady. "In the matter of Officer Brent Caldwell, we find the defendant guilty of abuse of power and misconduct." A collective sigh of relief rippled through Layla, Noah, and Paula. Layla felt tears prick her eyes, her body sagging with the weight of released tension. The judge's gavel hit the block, and it was over. Paula turned to them, her smile faint but genuine. "This is a victory, but it's just the beginning." Noah nodded. "We'll take it. For now." 2 weeks later, the Harris family stood on the steps of City Hall for a press conference. Behind them, a banner read "Justice for All, Accountability for Authority." Reporters and community members gathered, their attention fixed on the podium. Layla stepped forward, gripping the microphone. "This victory isn't just for my family. It's for every person who has been made to feel invisible. It's for my brother, Marcus, who gave his life for the truth. And it's for my daughter, Sierra, who deserves to grow up in a world where justice isn't just a word, it's a reality." Applause erupted, and Noah stepped in beside her. "We're grateful for the support of this community and for those who stood by us during this fight. But let's be clear, this isn't over. Real change takes persistence, and we intend to see it through." Later, as they descended the steps, Paula approached them with a satisfied smile. "The department has announced new training programs and a review of their practices. It's not perfect, but it's a start." Layla nodded. "A step forward is better than standing still." At home that evening, the atmosphere was lighter. Sierra was sprawled on the living room rug, playing with Boo while Layla and Noah sat on the couch, sipping tea. "Do you think Marcus would be proud?" Layla asked softly, her voice tinged with sorrow. Noah placed a hand on her knee. "I know he would. He took the hardest step, Layla. We're just carrying it forward." Sierra looked up from her toys, her big eyes curious. "Mommy, will Uncle Marcus come back?" Layla's heart clenched. "No, sweetie, but he's watching over us, and everything we do is to honor him." Sierra nodded solemnly, then crawled onto the couch, curling up beside her parents. "I think he'd be happy we won." Layla kissed her daughter's forehead, her heart swelling with a mix of love and determination. "I think so too." A month later, the family attended a community event held in Marcus's honor. The park was filled with laughter, music, and the scent of barbecue. Children ran freely, their innocence a reminder of what the Harris family was fighting for. Layla and Noah stood hand in hand, watching Sierra play on the swings with a group of kids. Layla smiled, the warmth of hope blooming in her chest. "She's happy," Noah observed, his voice soft. "She deserves to be," Layla replied. "And so do we." As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the park, Layla and Noah exchanged a look of quiet determination. They had faced darkness and refused to be broken. Now, together, they were ready to build a future where justice and love prevailed. The fight wasn't over, but they knew they weren't alone. They had each other, their community, and the strength to keep moving forward.